Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome, everybody. This gentleman's goal in life is to make the roads safer, truly safer for specifically motor carriers. There's so much traffic out there. So many things are being hauled, especially even nowadays. Amazon. Oh my gosh. So many more vehicles on the road. You add to that. He's been doing this for many years in terms of offering training solutions and working with companies. He was just down in Mexico working with a company that's transporting tanks to the United States to make sure they're safe. We're going to learn more about the safety protocols that go in place and the inspections that take place. Matt Freeman is back with us from DOT Training Solutions. Matt, welcome. How are you doing today?
Doing well. Hey, thanks for having me back, Steve. This has been a lot of fun and getting ready to learn a lot more.
Same thing here. I never realized what was involved in all of this, and especially when it comes to the investigations in the trucking agency. You brought along somebody that you've worked with quite a bit in the past, and she works with you now. Is that correct?
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yep.
She is a retired FMCSA special agent, and she's Cheryl Bonham, and she joins us today. Cheryl, welcome to you.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here.
Both of you are responsible within this company to make sure what's going on the roads is truly safe. And there's lots of investigations that, as I learned last time we got together, Matt, that take place with the trucking industry. Cheryl, I want to ask you, during an investigation, some of the key points that you're looking at. And by the way, I've learned from Matt last time we got together. When I hear the word investigation, immediately I'm thinking something went wrong. We're investigating what happened, but it's really that, and also just checking to make sure everything's up to speed. Is that right, Cheryl?
That's correct. I know that you and Matt have had a lot of conversations about the roadside inspection and going into companies and just inspecting their vehicles. Well, as a result of all of those inspections, then they would send somebody in, like me, to investigate all the paperwork. But that investigation in the motor carrier itself actually started because of all of those roadside inspections. Things were good, maybe in one area, and not so good in other areas. So, and the whole point is to educate them. And unfortunately, sometimes that comes with fines. But to get them, back on the right track, get them straightened out.
And both of you, your goal is to make sure your clients have compliance with the state and federal government before things go bad. When you're doing an inspection, Cheryl, or when you did, what are some of the things that is being looked at here? Pre-employment, let's talk about that.
Okay. There are, anytime you apply for a job, you fill out an application. There's lots of paperwork to be done. You know that yourself. There's very specific paperwork that they have to provide. Applications, previous employer checks, they have to have MVRs. There's clearinghouse issues if they have to, or if they have a CDL. And then you get into the entire drug and alcohol program. There's the pre-employment drug test before a CDL driver can even get in a truck and drive it. If they happen to have a positive test, all of that goes to the clearinghouse, which the clearinghouse is something that just started in the last few years. And it's any positive test for any CDL driver goes into that clearinghouse. So if they quit driving for me and want to go drive for you, then you have to run the clearinghouse to make sure they don't have a positive test result out there.
Wow. How long does the clearinghouse hold that information?
5 years, or
Interesting.
until it's satisfied.
Yeah.
If they have a positive test and a carrier decides to keep them, or even if the driver himself decides to go to a substance abuse professional, what they call a SAP, then once they complete the program, that paperwork goes into the system and that will clear him
Wow.
or her.
Right. Interesting. 5 years. I never thought it would be that much because we're not talking about an infraction here, and with all good reason. But even if it just shows up on a test, it's great peace of mind for the rest of us knowing that it's kept there. Those records are there. Obviously, the driver tested positive for a reason, so that needs to be
Right.
addressed. Hmm. Uh, what about some of the other things? Let's look at some of the other records out there that may be retained or follows somebody, whether it's an arrest, whether it's an accident record. How does that look when somebody's being hired to drive a motor carrier?
Well, there's also a database that FMCSA runs. It's called the SMS Safety Management System. And in that database, they retain roadside inspections for 3 years, and they retain crash records for 5 years, no matter what company they were driving for. So all those things are accessible to current employers and to people that might think about employing somebody. So there's always a record. A record follows you somewhere. If they don't get a ticket, it may not show up on their MVR, but it will still show up in that database. This is FMCSA is a very paperwork-driven agency. Take, for example, the crash this morning in Maryland where the freighter hit that.
The bridge,
All
right?
those containers that were on that boat would eventually end up on a truck.
Yep.
That's how they move it, truck and train.
Yep.
So, and even if they move it on a train, they've got to get it there to the place it belongs by truck. So it's a very paperwork driven area.
And we're looking at that collision with that bridge by a barge. That could have been a bridge that was on land and was hit by a truck driver, and could have been the same situation potentially. Me personally, looking at the video, I cannot believe that a strike like that would take that entire bridge down. I would think it would be in reinforce. It's an assumption. I know I'm digressing, but an assumption that a vessel is going to hit the bridge someday.
Right.
Going to happen.
Well,
just mind blowing.
And it's all about safety. I mean, something happened that made that boat unsafe. Just like, think about your parents riding down the road or your children, teenagers. You know how teenagers are sometimes, and messing with trucks. And I'll be the first one to throw myself under the bus, so to speak. I hated truck drivers when I was a teenager because they just were slow and they got in my way and I had to hurry up everywhere I went. So I was putting them in unsafe area.
Yeah, we've all
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that, because we more than ever, we're all on hyperspeed and we don't take into consideration that driver is being safe, is doing the speed limit, is being careful, for us and our families and the rest of us. And we're frustrated. I can't get around this one. Why? This is ridiculous. Why are you driving so slow? Yeah. Wow.
No, that's also an 80,000-pound vehicle.
Right.
And then there's that.
Yeah.
and that the 80,000-pound vehicle could hit a bridge and have the same situation that we have, in Maryland this morning. How about the hours of service, Cheryl? What is looked at there in terms of a driver?
Anytime you go in, the logs that you look at are based on a sample size. So if they've got 5 drivers, then you look at 30 days for each of those 5 drivers. So that's 150 pieces of paper right there.
Wow.
And and then if they have ELDs, you will look at GPS records because they're required to ping at least once every hour.
And your
you
EOD
look at-
are your electronic logging devices, so instead of paper.
Yes, I'm
EOD.
sorry.
So it's all, we've kind of briefed it, but just to kind of clarify for everybody, that's what that is.
Sure.
GPS records, payroll records to make sure they're logging all their trips. There's bill of ladings for each commodity that they're transporting. There's a lot of paperwork, fuel receipts, toll receipts, especially up in some of the northern states and here in Florida as well. There's lots of tolls you have to go through, and where we might pay $2 or $3, they're paying probably $30 or $40
Wow.
to just drive down the same toll road. Fuel reports to show when they bought fuel, and each one of those documents, you're looking at it for every single day.
It's almost like the IRS.
A little bit.
Yeah, it is.
What they're doing, with everything Cheryl's saying there, is they're looking to see where the origin and destination of that trip. So is it in a intrastate commerce or is it interstate? So they need to know where it starts, because that's where depending on where it starts and stops, where the regulations may and may not apply. But if it's an interstate trip, they're open to everything Cheryl's saying right here.
Sure. And if there's discrepancies, let's say the records weren't provided or kept for GPS or some of the other things, and then we take a look and wait a minute, you bought fuel twice a day. You must have been burning that fuel
Going somewhere.
and going somewhere. So it's almost, I equate it to a little bit like the IRS, got this, not adding up. We have a problem here.
Right.
Cheryl, I want to get into vehicle maintenance in just a moment, but as a special agent back in the day, what were some of the things that you did? Did you actually go to true investigations, accidents, things like that to investigate?
I did. And the most relevant crash investigation I did, and it was the very first one I did. It was the big crane trucks that you see going down the road that are actually cranes going from job to job. A driver had pulled off on the side of the road, and he was in a truck, and one of those crane trucks hit him, and he burned to death in that vehicle. And the carrier was probably 20 miles from my house. So when they sent me there to review their records to make sure, everything was close. Nobody's ever going to be perfect. Okay. I mean, it's just not the nature of the beast. They had absolutely no documentation whatsoever. And the owner of that company tried to tell me, they were in storage and he'd go get them. And I said, okay, that's fine. But he never made any move to go get them. So working crashes like that, makes it really come to fruition for you. And I don't know if Matt told you this or not, but I started this career as a truck driver.
I did not know that. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. How interesting, as a young adult, you were the one complaining at the trucks and now you're driving one.
Yes, exactly. Everything goes full circle, I guess.
I agree with you. Yeah. Oh, how interesting. Looking back at that crane truck collision, did they ever come up with a cause for that?
It was just driver error is all that they could determine. He just probably leaned over to get something out of the seat or in the floor and just veering off that side of the road. I'm doing hand signals like you can see those. veering off the side of the road, just that little bit, and the driver couldn't get out.
Yeah. Wow. Unbelievable. Um, Vehicle maintenance. What kind of records are kept? What do we look at there?
We keep all of the roadside inspections that are done and the receipts for everything that had to be repaired. Now, if a motor carrier makes his own repairs, then there's a form they can write that up on. The annual inspections that have to be done, whether they're done by the state or whether, they do the periodic inspection required. And I always told carriers when I was a special agent, I don't care if you write up your repair on a gum wrapper. Write up that you've done these things, because if I don't see proof, then I can't, give you credit for it.
You don't see it.
And every day that the driver finds a defect, they're supposed to complete a driver vehicle inspection report and submit it to the carrier so it can get fixed. And then there's a process where the mechanic will sign off on it, or if it's something the driver can fix, the driver can sign it again. And then whoever takes that truck or trailer the next time, they have to sign off that it was actually done. So it's a 3-step process to ensure that those things get fixed, and they've just got to hang on to that paperwork.
When an inspection or investigation is done, Cheryl, how do you get all of this paperwork? Is the driver carrying it in the rig? Is there somewhere online where it seems like there's a lot of information at that moment? Let's say there's a checkpoint, and the police or whoever, state troopers, are pulling vehicles over and checking them, and somebody like you maybe is there. I don't know. How is all that information put together?
Well, actually, that's done after the fact of the inspection. The inspection is done at the roadside, whether it's a scale house or a checkpoint, whatever they decide to use.
Sure.
And then all that goes into what they call the MICMAS system, which is just a database that holds all the roadside inspections. And that SMS program will divvy them up by DOT number. And then if there's problems, that's when somebody like me would actually go to the motor carrier's office. And I would send them a letter saying, this is what I'm going to want to look at. I just would never tell them as an investigator which drivers or trucks I wanted until I walked through the door. So they don't get a chance to try to recreate, which the majority of them are not going to try to recreate. It's just those few people, and it seems like sometimes they're the ones you see over and over and over, that, just don't want to do that paperwork. They want to drive their truck, make a living, and do what they got to do to get by. But that is not the norm.
The skeptical side of me has to ask this question. The falsification of records. Is that done? Can you spot a phony? How does that all look?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're very easy to tell because people don't think about it sometimes when they get ready to falsify them. I went to a carrier one time, and I had been there before, so they all knew me. And I asked the lady that I dealt with for their annual inspections. And I said, I need them for these trucks. And she said, I really don't have time to stop and get them for you. They're laying right over there. Can you just get the ones you need? Well, I just went over there and picked up the whole stack and took them back to the desk I was working at, which was in her eyesight. And every single one of those 32 inspections had the exact same date on it.
I smelled that coming.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
can't do 32 level 1 inspections in an 8-hour day.
Why don't you just run it through the copy machine and
Right.
and just throw it all there in the folder if you're going to do that? Unbelievable. Uh, Matt, I know that you have team members all over the country helping motor carriers make sure that things are safe and they're ready for investigations. Um, with Cheryl as a special agent, and working for the FMCSA back in the day, what's her function with your company, DOT Training Solutions now?
Yeah, she's one of my primary consultants. She does training for us. We work with everybody. So anything they need when it comes to safety wise, Cheryl's there for them along with the rest of the team. So if it's training, live training where we're actually at the facilities, hotel classes, we're inviting the public in, or even going to the facility and sitting down and working with them. Or sometimes
Sure.
we do stuff online. Sometimes it's easier to do it remotely, like a Teams meeting or something to do things with. So we've had to evolve, especially back in the day, just a few years ago, you couldn't do nothing but unless it was a Teams meeting. So we've evolved, and we give the options to any of our customers out there that, however they need the help, if it's there live or just like this, we can do it.
Interesting. I detect in Cheryl that she is somebody who will give you some latitude and understanding, but don't try to pull one over on her. It's not going to work.
Gosh,
Better
does
right.
it show?
Yeah. And with all good reason, if a company is hiring your company to make sure that things are being done right, that's what you're going to do. And we use the word, Cheryl, you're retired from your, previous position as special agent, but I got to believe you're working continuously to keep up on the regulations, and I've got to believe they vary from state to state as well, right?
They do. And most states will put their state laws for commercial vehicles on their web pages. So you can go on there and learn a lot. The regulations are constantly changing. Every now and then I miss one and somebody will say something and I have to go back and do my research and get back on track. But you know what? Anybody in the trucking business has got to know those books have all those rules in it. You can't memorize them. I carry one around with me all the time.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I got mine laying right here.
Well, you know what that
Here's
demonstrates?
the other one.
Oh my gosh. Here comes the age, but looks like the phone book back in the day.
It does.
And what that says to me is if you're a motor carrier company, there's no way that you're going to go through that and figure it all out, which is why you would want somebody else watching your back like you guys
Right.
to make sure that you are complying, that things are safe, that, investigations are being done. Cheryl, if a company is located in another state and they want more personal attention, would you be dispatched there and go to their state to take care of it?
Yes. I left the week of Christmas, right after the Christmas holiday, and went to Utah. And when I got back from there, I went to New Hampshire, from sunny Florida to 18 degrees in New Hampshire.
You're a trooper.
But yeah, I don't mind traveling at all. I want, if they want help, I want them to get it.
Yeah.
So I'd be glad to make phone calls when I'm not working. We have clients all over the country, as you well know. And one of them, I call at 9 o'clock at night and he's just getting ready to get off. So, but
Yeah.
it's worth it to me. If anybody wants to be safe, I want to do my part to make sure they are.
Well, we give them massive check marks to even take that step to make sure it's being done right, and then reaching out to you guys to get that done. Matt, if somebody is that company and wants to ensure that they are complying and safe and have everything really, really buttoned down well, how do they connect with you?
And they can reach me at Matt at dottrainingsolutions.com. You can go to our website and follow any of our links from there at dottrainingsolutions.com. You can also reach me at 573-416-8203. That's our direct number. And Cheryl, if you want to throw yours out there.
Sure. My email is cheryl@dot.trainingsolutions or dottrainingsolutions.com. I'm sorry. Got DOT on my brain now. And my number is 573-933-9020.
Great having you both on. And by the way, with the DOT, there's probably a .dot. I bet you. .com, there's probably a .dot. Fantastic having you on here and just learning this whole process demonstrated the importance of safety in the bridge accident today, albeit that was on water. Same principle there. We need to make sure these vehicles are safe, and that's where you guys come in. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey,
Thank you for having us.
Appreciate it, Matt and Cheryl. And we will be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.